Krauskopf didn't just misspeak in an interview. She detonated a live grenade in the middle of the Indiana Fever organization, the fanbase, and the entire WNBA media landscape. Her words didn't drift quietly into the void. They hit like a shockwave, rattling a franchise that had finally climbed out of irrelevance and threatening to send it spiraling back into mediocrity. What she said wasn't simply tone-deaf. It was a declaration that the front office does not understand the magnitude of the moment they're standing in. It was a public admission that they're more concerned with managing optics than building a dynasty. And while they were fumbling that message, Caitlin Clark, player responsible for dragging this franchise back from the dead, was watching the whole thing unfold. Because before Caitlin arrived, the Fever were a ghost town. Empty seats, forgotten games, local coverage that barely existed, national coverage that didn't exist at all, and a franchise drifting year after year with no real direction. The team wasn't just bad, it had become a cautionary tale, proof that being in the league doesn't guarantee relevance. Then, one day, the doors opened and a superstar walked in. Not a star, not an all-star, a phenomenon. And instantly, overnight, a franchise that couldn't fill its own lower bowl suddenly had ticket demand that resembled a playoff team. Jersey sales exploded. Merchandise surged. Viewership skyrocketed. The Fever name was suddenly everywhere, not because the front office had some brilliant strategy, but because one player had the power to transform the sport. And instead of embracing that reality, the team president chose the worst possible moment to suggest that none of it really mattered as much as the brand. That single moment revealed how dangerously disconnected the Fever leadership is from the reality sitting directly in front of them. Because this isn't corporate America. This isn't consumer electronics. You don't build a dynasty by pretending all pieces are equal. You build a dynasty by recognizing when you have a once-in-a-generation engine and then building everything around it. You don't water down your message because you're afraid someone might say your success is dependent on one player. Of course it is. Every great franchise in sports history depends on one player. The Bulls were Michael Jordan. The Warriors were Stephen Curry. The Lakers were Magic, and later Kobe. The Patriots were Brady. These teams became iconic because they embraced the identity their stars created. They didn't hide it. They didn't soften it. They didn't pretend they were bigger than the person who built their empire. They leaned into greatness because you don't get it twice. Yet this Fever front office is acting like the worst thing that could happen is becoming too closely associated with the very player who resurrected them. And that's why fans are furious, because they can see what the leadership refuses to acknowledge. They see Caitlin fighting through physical games that feel more like survival tests than basketball. They see her playing through systems that minimize her skill set instead of elevating it. They see teammates freezing her out, disorganized execution, offensive schemes that feel improvised rather than intentional. They see a generational player being underutilized, undervalued, and now unbelievably undermined by the very people who should be her biggest advocates. And they're rightfully asking how long any superstar would tolerate that environment before deciding her legacy is too important to waste on an organization that doesn't recognize what it has. That's the nightmare scenario the Fever just activated. Because when you publicly downplay your greatest asset, you don't sound confident. You sound insecure. You sound unprepared. You sound like a franchise terrified of success because it doesn't understand how to manage it. And for the first time, fans is realizing something darker, that Caitlin Clark's long-term future in Indiana is no longer something to take for granted. The WNBA is evolving fast, and star power now has real leverage. In a few years, when contracts end and options open, players like Caitlin will have choices. She will be able to go where she is valued, where she is prioritized, where her skill set is maximized, and where the front office understand that she is not simply part of the product. She is a product. There are teams right now that would center entire marketing campaigns around her, reshape their roster around her style, and build the entire franchise identity around her presence. And if the Fever don't change course fast, the future is obvious. Caitlin Clark came into this league with the pressure of an entire sport placed on her shoulders, and instead of breaking under it, she elevated everything around her. She elevated teammates. She elevated viewership. She elevated revenue. She elevated the Fever brand itself. And in return, all she needed was recognition, acknowledgement that she is the centerpiece of the franchise, and that the entire organizational mission is to build a championship around her and Aaliyah Boston. Instead, she got a message that made her sound replaceable, As if the Fever could lose the most transformative star in women's basketball and still sustain momentum on branding alone. It was a message so misguided that fans were left in disbelief, unsure how leadership could misread the moment this dramatically. The truth is simple. You do not treat generational talent like an interchangeable part. You do not dilute their importance. You do not blink when the entire world is watching. This moment requires clarity, conviction, and leadership, not corporate metaphors and lukewarm positioning. And every second the Fever fail to correct this message, the doubt grows. Caitlin Clark is not just a player. She is the gravitational force pulling the entire league into a new era. She deserves an organization that treats her like a foundation, not a feature. Because superstars don't wait forever. They don't tolerate undervaluation. They don't stay where their greatness is minimized. They go where their legacy can flourish. And unless the Indiana Fever act fast, they may end up learning that lesson the hardest way possible. Now I want to hear from you. If you were Caitlin Clark watching this interview, would you trust the Fever organization with your future? Do you think they fully understand the magnitude of the player they have? Or is this the beginning of a fracture that could grow into something irreversible? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more deep dive breakdowns on every twist and turn of this unfolding story, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Because this saga isn't slowing down, and you're not going to want to miss a single chapter.